Hey there, you guys. So we are talking about peer review today. The first thing that I want to suggest to you about peer review is get cozy. Don't wear something that's confining, that's going to stop you from being able to really engage your brain. I recommend that to you. Okay, so that's my first step, is prepare by getting cozy. Okay, and then to do our peer reviews, I know that you've most likely already watched the video that I posted about how to do peer review, what it entails, that sort of thing. If you haven't, definitely watch that now, just so that you can have a better idea of what I'm expecting. Let's go through the sample paper together. We'll do the first 2 paragraphs so you can see what kind of thought processes you should be having. So let's get to it. The first easy thing to check would be to double check and make sure that all the formatting is right. Now, of course, formatting is not content related in terms of comments, but it's always really helpful and it's easy to spot if there's a formatting issue. So, everything on this looks good. So let's scroll down to the content. All right, so we have our title, Augmented Reality During the Reality of Quarantine. Do we like it? Do we hate it? I kind of like it, right? But if you have a suggestion to make it stronger, maybe you say, oh, well, let's do a colon right after and put Pokemon Go. So that way it's a little bit more concrete. Then we can do that. So how would that look? Well, you would just double click on one of the words, and then you could add a comment in a few different ways. I'll show you one. Which would be to right click and then new comment. All right, and then you'll see that it'll show you a box with your name on it. Might even just say Microsoft user, that's okay too. And you just type your comment. Maybe something like connect your title to Pokemon Go. Consider using a colon after this. After the title you have here. Boom. And then there we go. So now we've made a comment that helps add to the content that your peer has. Now let's start off again with the intro. 2020 was a devastating year for the world. Was that catchy? Yeah, it was. And you know what? Everybody who can read has lived through 2020. So whether you're feeling like it was devastating for about the pandemic, about any sort of social issues that are happening, or just all of it, right? It's devastating. And that is something that draws your reader in. They're going, oh yeah, I thought so too. Right? So something to get them interested. If it weren't as engaging, then you'd make a comment. Engage your reader, right? But this one, it seems quality, okay? So let's move on. For 9 months of that year, the world was besieged by a pandemic. All right, so we're playing on our readers' fears here. We can see besieged has this sort of taking over kind of idea that would be really something to get them involved. All right, so I'm thinking we're good there too. This pandemic forced people to consider how they interact with others, and for some, forced them to stay in their homes. Okay, so I've got a comment in here. So we're talking about a pandemic, but we're not talking about what pandemic. Are we talking about, swine flu? Or are we hearkening back to, like, the plague? To make it a little bit more clear for the reader, right, double click on one of the points in pandemic and add a comment. I'm just going to use a shortcut key, but remember, right click, new comment works too. So I could say, consider mentioning that this pandemic is related to COVID-19 for clarity, right? That way your reader knows, hey, this is the COVID-19 pandemic. This isn't another kind of pandemic. This isn't a metaphorical pandemic. So, cool. Let's move on again. During this year, each person was forced to find ways to adjust their lives so they could maintain some level of normalcy. Fair. For some, that meant focusing on work and developing their relationships with their immediate family further. Okay, that's a little clunky, right? If I wanted to make a comment about an edit, right, I can add a little comment bubble. For the purposes of this, what I'll do is I'll just write edit so you can see that wouldn't be counted toward those 5 content-related comments, and just say revise to make this clearer for your reader. Okay, so then Now we're good, right? We because we're saying it's a little bit weird, right? For some, focusing on work and developing and developing their relationships with their immediate family further. It just sounds a little strange. A great way to tell is to read things out loud, kind of like I'm doing. Okay. For others who craved going out into the world, they turn to a virtual method for doing so. Okay, so it's saying some people were cool with staying home and building relationships. Other people who felt the need to get out wanted to still be able to do that, but do it safely. So we turned outward and looked at a virtual way of engaging with the world. Okay, online augmented reality, parentheses, AR applications help those who were unable to interact with the world and others in it to get that interaction they craved. Okay, fair enough. Pokemon Go is one such AR game, right? We needed to identify exactly what that game is, otherwise the rest of the essay wouldn't make sense. Then we could do something, we could make a comment. Maybe you say in your mind, like, it would have been good to know that this essay was a little bit more about augmented reality and Pokemon Go earlier. If you feel that way, then, type it into a comment. Personally, I think that this kind of builds in nicely, right? Because we start talking about the world, and then we're talking about kind of the pandemic situation, and then we talk about how that affects people, right? And then how people cope, and then Pokemon Go, right? As in a way that people cope. But if you feel like, we need to see it sooner, say that, okay? And then we have our thesis. During and after quarantine, Pokemon Go helps to provide players with daily challenges to overcome, long-term goals, and interaction with other players of the game. All right, so we have our statement of purpose and our 3 forecast elements in there. Now, if you have a paper that you're going, oh my goodness, I don't know where the thesis is, then say that. If you say, I don't see the thesis, or if you only see the statement of purpose, say something like, I can see that the statement of purpose is that Pokemon Go provides players with some sort of challenge, but I don't see the forecast elements to narrow that further. And that's totally okay, right? So make that comment, but make sure that it's not just, where's your thesis? It's, how can we fix this, right? With that goal of helping your peer to strengthen their essay. Okay, now let's move into this next paragraph. Pokemon Go offers players daily challenges. All right, so it's okay, right? Because that sentence does kind of harken back to the statement of purpose. We are ultimately talking about Pokemon Go. We are seeing the forecast element because we're talking about daily challenges. Could it be stronger? Absolutely. So what we could do is highlight one of the words, add a comment, something like, this would be stronger if it focused on the benefit of daily challenges. Every time a player opens the application, Pokemon appear in their immediate surroundings. All right, is this part of the daily challenge? We haven't quite seen yet, but the next sentence should tell us. Once interaction begins. Wait, what interaction? All right, so we need a comment there, right? Once interaction begins, what interaction? Actually, let's get more specific. Interaction with what? Right? And now, then your peer can look at that and say, oh, well, once the player interacts with the Pokemon on the world, then they have to choose whether to use a berry to help catch the Pokemon and which Pokeball to use. Cool. So then, once that's clarified, we see berries can help the player earn extra Pokemon candies, helping aid in evolution, or help the Pokemon stay still for easier capture, or even encourage the Pokemon to want to enter the Pokeball. Okay, so we now see, we talked about berries and then explained what berries do in the sample. Awesome. All right, then the player must choose from 3 different Pokeballs. Okay, if the reader doesn't know what Pokeballs are, it might be good early when we're talking about Pokemon to kind of identify that they hang out in there, right? That's kind of their home. So maybe what we could do is we could leave a comment. What is the function of a Pokeball? All right, so then we have a standard Pokeball, a Great Ball, or an Ultra Ball. Okay, those are those 3 different options. These different options give the player varying effectiveness for catching the Pokemon. All right, so finally that's where we see that they catch it, but it's a little late, so we need to talk about that earlier. The challenge of catching these Pokemon gives players an opportunity to test their skills and build their Pokemon collection. Okay, this transition sentence, right, does help wrap up this paragraph, but it doesn't really help us move into the next paragraph. So we want to say, we were talking about long-term goals, right? And sure, building their Pokemon collection is a long-term goal, but really you want it to be a little bit more specific about that. So let's put a little comment, or maybe you want them to be a little bit more specific on that. So let's put a comment like transition more clearly into the next paragraph. Boom. All right, and we've done it. So just by asking questions and thinking about what needs to be present in an essay, we've now just taken the sample essay, which was decent, right? It was pretty good. But we've taken that and then enhanced it further, right? Given the person who wrote this an opportunity to strengthen their work. All right, so hopefully looking at the intro and that first paragraph really did help you guys to kind of see the thought processes you want to put into peer review. If you have any questions or anything like that, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, do great things, and I will see you next time.